to the show where fish tales come alive. Join host Norman Lee, let's take a dive. By the freshwater lakes where the bass run deep, where the crappie bite and the memories we keep. We're casting lines and sharing all the tricks. Norman's on the mic with the pros top pick. We got stories from the masters fishing legends of our time, from Major League Fishing to the Bassmasters climb. Tipping techniques and laughs along the way. So tune in tight, let's go fishing today. On the mic, where the fishing dream flows on the ride. We're casting out lines, you know. Norman Lee's got the tails and the bait, from morning fog to the evening's golden wake. We're talking bass and crappie, it's more than just a catch. It's the friendships we build, every story we sketch it. Remember that time on the river's bend when we hooked the big one on wood, a friend sipping cold drinks, sharing secrets and lore. Fishing ain't just a hobby, it's at the heart of the shore. Trip of tales from sun-kissed dawns to nights where we sail, bringing in the biggest names in fishing fame. Through laughter and lines, it's all part of the game. On the mic, where the fishing dream floats on the ride, we're casting out lines, you know. Norman Lee's got the tails and the bait, from morning fog to the evening's golden wake. We're talking bass and crappie, it's more than just a catch. It's the friendships we build, every story we sketch. So come on, pull up a chair, join the fishing podcast where we all gather here with Norman Lee guiding the lines we cast. In the heart of the fishing world, memories will last. Let's go fishing, no one ever apart. On the mic is where we'll find the heart.
All right, what's going on? What is going on, my fishing fanatics? Man, we have another insane episode lined up for you today, and another great guest going to be joining the show here pretty momentarily. But today's show is presented by Cornfield Fishing Gear, electronic mounting brackets that secures your valuable electronics. Rock solid engineering, safe and secure. Also, check out their transducer mounting brackets, their rod holders, plus a whole lot more. Fish more, worry less with Cornfield Fishing Gear, man. Check them out at cornfieldfishinggear.com. Again, that is www.cornfieldfishinggear.com. Made, manufactured, and produced in the USA. All right, we have another insane episode, man. This is kind of a special episode today. The guest we have joining us, man, it is way too overdue for having him on one of the shows. But, you know, when it comes to Lake Seminole, there's really two iconic legends that is very well known for Lake Seminole, for really putting Lake Seminole on the map from way back in the day. One of those names is a very well-known name, which is Jack Wingate. The other name that's a legend on Lake Seminole, and really in the fishing community as a whole, along with Jack Wingate, is our guest that's going to be joining the show today, Alan Carter. So make sure you stay tuned for the episode. You know, we're gonna dive into a lot with Alan, including a crazy story on how myself and Alan kind of crossed paths and met over 20 years ago. It's a really cool story, so you're going to want to stick around for that story. Plus, we're going to talk about a whole lot more, including the influence that Mr. Jack Wingate had on Alan Carter's career, as well as the BASS and the bass fishing industry in as a whole. So, guys, stick around. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to dive right in to this week's episode with Mr. Alan Carter. On the mic with Alan Carter, man. What's going on, Alan? And a little bit off camera, we're just talking about the weather we got going on, man. It has been cold up here in East Tennessee, but we haven't seen any snow yet, man. But you said you actually had a couple snow flurries down there in North Florida, South Georgia already.
Yeah, we had some this morning about 2 o'clock. Look, I thought it was fog, but it wasn't fog. It's big flakes, and they kind of got on the railing on my boat dock out there, and I went out there and looked at them.
Wow, man, it's snowing in South Georgia and it hasn't snowed here in East Tennessee. That's really crazy, man. But real good, we're gonna start this thing. We started this thing off a little bit with a little bit of a weather update on Tennessee and Florida and Georgia, but let's roll into this, man. For all of you, all of our viewers that don't know who Alan Carter is, man, you're going to know who Alan Carter is after we get done, because Alan Carter is a legend, one of two legends on Lake Seminole. But anyway, we're going to go into it. But briefly, Alan, I want to tell everybody and talk a little bit about how me and you kind of first met. And we're going to keep this to kind of a brief version of the story. And I don't know, you probably remember exactly how we're going to talk about this to the T, Alan, as well. But about 20 years ago, I was fishing a championship, a 2-day championship for a trail that I fished, and it was on Lake Seminole. My first day of practice, put the boat in, and I guess it was about 1 o'clock, 1:30, something like that. And we have not seen we've seen plenty of fish. We just couldn't get any fish to commit. I don't think we caught a fish up to that point, and we were seeing them all over the place, but just couldn't figure out how to get them fish to bite. And actually, it was my first time ever being on Seminole. But anyway, we're fishing down a reed edge, and we run into this dude. You were in I think it was a green John boat with a little kicker on it. And we started talking to you. You know, we're fishing along shoreline. I was going to go on the outside of you and go around you. You've been there fishing for a while. I didn't want to interfere with you. So I started talking to you as I was going by. And, you know, I asked you how you done, how you were doing. And you went into telling me that you already caught, I think, a 5, a 6. I think you might have caught a couple 7s to that point. And my eyes got about as big around as a silver dollar. Because my first day there, we're fishing for about 6 hours and haven't caught a fish yet. So started talking to you, and you were telling me all kinds of stories from your boat, you know, about your accolades and everything. And you invited us up to your house. Well, I'm gonna leave that story at that right now, and we'll go back to that story a little bit later. But you have been a guide on Lake Seminole since you were 7 years old. Tell us a little bit about that story, Alan, and how do you become a guide at 7 years old, man? That's crazy.
Well, back in when I started guiding my 7-year-old back in 1947. Back then, you made a nickel, you had to keep it, you know. My daddy, he made 50 cents a day, and I got 25 cents a day. That's what we got for guiding.
Right.
And we used cane poles back then with large shiners. Well, we call them roaches, but actually it's a lake shiner. But we guided people from all over the United States. We had people out of New York. And another story about there, too, we had the gangsters. They came in down on the dead lakes at what they call the Polar Park Inn. My daddy knew them all. They was little boy Floyd, Dillinger, and all them, and they signed their name on the back of the wall on room 13 in Polar Park Inn. And Catton was a black guy there that guided too. He was out there with them, but we went in there, on the dead lakes. I got it there, but then we went up on Lake Seminole, and I was guiding back in there in the woods there, and I seen a fish on the bed. Well, I really didn't know that it was a fish on the bed. I asked my daddy. I said, "Daddy," I said, "there's a bass over here on a real shiny spot." I said, "What's he doing?" And he told me. He said, "Oh, buddy," he said, "that's a bass is on the bed." I said, "Well, Daddy," I said, he said, "Well, go up there and get one of them lake roaches in a pole and we'll catch him." So I went up there to the old Model T truck we had. We had our boats on top of there, and I got one of them, looked over the front seat of the truck. He had his old shotgun in there, a single barrel. So I got that shotgun out and went back down there. I stuck it under the water, and when I pulled the trigger, it blew in about 100 pieces. It looked to me like that, probably about 2 or 3 I had to stop with. Man.
Yeah.
But Daddy said he come out behind the tree, he had to go to the bathroom and holler what happened. And I told him, I said, "I got the bass, Daddy." He said, "You got the what?" I said, "The bass." He just walked up to me. He said, "Son," he said, pulled his knife out and handed it to him. He said, "Son, go cut me a switch." I said, "What?" He said, "Go cut me a switch and make sure it won't break." So I went up there and found an old plum tree, and I cut a switch for him. When I come back, well, he put blisters all on my legs, my back, and everywhere. But the problem was that he said, "I'm not whipping you because you kill that fish." He said, "I'm trying to teach you a lesson, son." He said, "You could have got killed right there." He said, "That gun could have blowed your head off, your hands, or anything.
Yeah.
Put your eyes out." And then when I started walking, he said, "No, you ain't learned your lesson." So he put some more on me. I said, "Daddy," I said, "I learned my lesson." He said, "Okay." He said, "Don't you ever do that again as long as I'm living."
Yeah.
But that's how I got my first fish off the bed.
Yeah, and that's a crazy story too, and that just kind of shows, Alan, the difference that we have in time from way back then, and what year was that? Do you think about?
That was in it was in the 40s.
In the four, yeah.
1940.
Yeah, so that kind of shows that the big difference in time and error from then to what we have now, because back then and really even going into the 70s to like your first Bassmaster Classics,
Right.
nobody ever heard of catch and release. Catching them with a rod and reel off a bed, being able to release them so future generations could enjoy the same fish, catching the same fish. Everybody they cooked, they ate, kind of catching fillet back then versus today. All your fishing sportsmen, it's all about catch and release. So we're protecting our environment. So that kind of just goes to show the difference in errors from the 40s, 50s, 60s, even on into the 70s to today's bass fishing. Where today we're 100% putting them back. Back then, catch and release was never heard of. It was catch and fillet back then, basically, is what everybody called it. But that's a really cool story, man. And you went on after that. You went on to guide pretty much all your life.
Right.
And
Yeah, I went into service and spent 11 years, 8 months, and 27 days. And that's the only time I didn't guide.
right.
Before that, though, but back in time change, back in the 40s there, we used an old steel rod and a little, like a Fluker Supreme reel.
Right.
And black back on the line. And we didn't fish deep water, we fished shallow water, and we threw the top water bait even in the wintertime. You could break the ice out there.
Right.
But now, people fishing 20 and 30 foot of water. It was unheard of back then.
Yeah. You never even think about doing that back then like they are today, and with the technology, and then just the added bonus of all the technology today, where you could actually see the fish swimming around in 20, 25, 30 feet in live time. Watch them coming up eating the bait. It's that was way before that time. Way before that time. And people didn't even think about going off the bank, whether they had electronics or not, dragging any kind of baits around back then. It was all whatever you could see, you fished.
Yeah, back then you just went by, what you learned. You had to learn to read the water.
Yeah.
And see the conditions of it, how the wind was blowing, all that.
Yeah.
When you used the boat back then, if you bumped beside the boat when you was guiding, whoever you was guiding, he thought you run every fish away. Now you flip and you get right on top of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to move on a little bit forward now. I'm going to talk about. We're going to spend a couple minutes talking about yourself and Mr. Jack Wingate. Now, we're going to continue a little bit with the story of how we met. Fast forward, you're taking me up into your house. Uh, First of all, the first thing I notice when I'm walking up your backyard is you got a whole bunch of pets following us up to your front door. You had a couple geese, some ducks, and I don't know how often you feed them geese and ducks, but you could go right up to them and pet the big geese. And they wanted to follow us really right into your house. I thought that was the coolest thing. But when we got into your house, Alan, you had a magazine laying open on your coffee table. And I guess the magazine was kind of me being from Florida back then. I guess a Floridian, we're used to Florida Sportsman magazine. Well, I guess this magazine was the Georgia version of what the Florida Sportsman was. I think it was called the Georgia Outdoor News, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this magazine laying open, and basically on the cover of this magazine, it basically headlines two living legends, iconic fishermen on Lake Seminole. And at that time, now Jack has passed since then, but at that time he was still alive when that article was written. So basically, it was two living legends and iconic fishermen, and it had your name actually first, and then Jack Wingate second, which I thought was really, really cool. And all of you that don't know who Jack Wingate is, Jack Wingate, basically, he was the owner and operator of Lunker Lodge, which later became Wingate's Lodge. And here's a little bit of a fun fact with Jack Wingate. Jack Wingate was really, really good friends with Ray Scott. And Jack was a huge part of the foundation building block for the Bass Angler Sportsman Society, which everybody knows it today as BASS. So Jack Wingate was an instrumental part, along with Ray Scott, in the foundation and the building block for BASS. And uh, there was actually a story written in this article where it said there's only one man ever to do more guide trips or guide more clients on Lake Seminole than Jack Wingate, and that was Alan Carter. So I thought that was really cool. And that article is actually public knowledge. For all of our viewers, if you want to go back after the podcast is over and look at this article, it's a really, really cool article about yourself and Jack Wingate. Go ahead and Google Alan Carter, professional bass fisherman and guide on Lake Seminole, and it'll pull it up. And it's basically look for Georgia Outdoor News with Alan Carter. And it's a very, very good article. But man, tell you have a bunch of stories, Alan, about you and Jack Wingate. Let's go into talking about Jack a little bit, man. And what did Jack mean to you and your career?
Jack was my mentor. Him and my father were the first one, and Jack was second. When I got out of the military, see, the Lake Seminole wasn't here then. When I got out, they started backing it up when I went in the military. Okay, Jack carried me around, showed me the whole lake, everything, where the stalk fields were. I mean, from A to Z on it there. And but I don't know if people know, but at Wingate's Lodge, Jack Wingate and Ray Scott and the doctor and Tom Mann, that's where they started the BASS at.
Yeah.
They got a picture in there and the table that they sat at. Today it's called the At Ease Fish Camp. But he showed me, he learned me everything. He taught me. We just get on a boat and we'd ride.
Yeah.
And every morning he'd come out below my house. There's a little creek there, and he'd come out and come over, and we'd sit on my boat dock and drink a cup of coffee. And he'd always want to know what I did that day, or did I see anything the day before. But he would carry me. He'd carry me all up to Spring Creek, up Flint River, over in Rays Lake, up the Chattahoochee River, but back then we called it the Big River. It wasn't the Chattahoochee River.
Yeah.
That was named after the Creek Indians. But he showed me all about that. And Jack, he he knew something about everything. He knew about all the Indians and everything. He was a historian. I mean, everybody loved to just sit there and listen to him talk. But he was one of the best men you'll ever run up on, because he was, wherever he met you at, he would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it.
Yeah.
He taught me so much. He taught me how to catch bass off the bed too.
Yeah.
And how to catch shell crackers and brim, when they were bedding.
Yeah.
He would take me, he'd go where all the sandbars were, where all the stump fields were, and everything. So but he's just a good man. He always told me that. He said, Alan said, whatever you can do, always help somebody. He said, don't ever let anybody down. He said, always learn something new every day. He said, you'll see something new.
Yeah.
He said, always remember that. And he said, there's two things you can do when you're fishing. And he got me in the FLW too there, but he said, two things remember, son. He said, when you're fishing a bass tournament there, he said, the person you're fishing against, he said, he can't beat you. He said, you can only beat yourself.
Right.
He said, always remember that. And he said, he was such a good man. I mean, he was great.
Yeah. Yeah, Jack Wingate, man, and that's one of the things I wish before Jack had passed that I got to meet him as well. I never got to meet Jack, and heard so much about him, heard how great of a person he was. But that's one thing I wish I'd got to meet him and got to know him before he did pass away. But that's a really good piece of advice that you had got from Jack as well. Because that's one of the things talked about a lot too when you're in a tournament. There so many people in bass tournaments. They're so worried about what their competitors are doing. That's one thing that I learned at a young age going into starting my bass fishing tournament career, I should say, is all you're doing when you go out there in a tournament is keep a mindset. You're fishing against the fish, nobody else. Just fish against the fish, and you could only control what you could control on your boat. Can't control what everybody else is doing. So don't worry about what everybody else has. Just worry about what you're doing, and like you said, fish the fish and not your competitors. And you're going to keep the right headspace if you do that.
Right. Jack always had a saying. He always told me, he said, son, he said, when you fish out there, he said, don't worry about the mule, just keep the plow on the ground. And you can do all of that.
Oh man, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and like I say, I wish I'd got a chance to meet Jack before he did pass away. But great man, one of the best men, one of the best fishermen, and one of the best personalities, and one of the most kind, dear-hearted men you'd ever want to find too. Like you said, if you needed something, no matter what it was, he'd give you the shirt off his back if you needed it more than him. So. Now we're gonna roll right into back up to when you and me first met. We're in your house. You take me upstairs, and I'm blown away, man. I'm looking at all your basically your trophy room or your office space there with all your trophies, and I'm looking at all your BASS trophies, your All-American trophies. The list just goes on of what trophies you had in your trophy case. They're all for FLW, and I'm just blown away by looking at all these trophies. And then we kind of go back downstairs, and we kind of, we have to get going. We have to continue fishing, and you had mentioned to me, you said, is somebody else allowed in your boat in this event, or is it against the rules? So, basically I told you, to my knowledge, as long as you don't solicit information and pay for information, you're good. So I told you I'm going to check into that evening, and I'll call you. You gave me your phone number, the whole 9 yards, and you said we might be able to hook up. You can't do it the next day, but 2 days from now, which would have been my last day of practice, call you back. So I did look into it. Yeah, I was all good. As long as I didn't pay you to help me, we were 100% okay with having you come aboard. So my last day of practice, you jumped into the boat. We put the boat in the morning, picked you up, and we went out. And we started fishing. And just fishing with you on the front deck with me, I learned so much about Lake Seminole. It wasn't even funny. And a little bit of a side story too is you were taking me and showing me different areas, and you asked me. You said, "Now is your GPS turned on?" I said, "Yes, sir." You said, "So your GPS is on tracking, right? Where it'll track your path?" "Yes, sir." He said, "Good, because I'm going to be taking you through some shortcuts to get some of these areas, and you're going to want to make sure when you go back in the tournament tomorrow, follow your track. Don't get off your track. Follow your track to a T. Make sure you're zoomed all the way out and follow it." So I said, "Okay." So what you said and what we proceeded to do, you basically said, "Just follow my hand, and I'm gonna put my hand left, put my hand right, or put my hand straight, and that's what the course you want to take, and I'll tell you if you're getting off course." So we done that, and all day long, dude, we were going to different areas, and some of these areas you were taking me and just using your hand to navigate. I'm looking down on each side of the boat alongside the gunnel, and we're driving through stump fields, and these stumps were barely touching the surface. You wouldn't be able to see them if you're 30 foot away because they're just under. We're driving through paths, cutting these stump fields. That's not marked on the GPS, and they're only wide enough to get a boat through. And you're directing me through these, and we're going probably 30, 35, just fast enough to keep on playing, but fast enough to leave a lower unit out there if we hit one of these stumps. And I looked down, and needless to say, I was puckered in places that you don't want to talk about being puckered in. But you're steering me with my hands, and yeah, that was some sketchy stuff, but you knew right what you were doing, man. And to kind of make a end to that story, come tournament day, I thought about it, and I'm like, nah, no, I forget my trails. I'm gonna take the long way around till I know that a little bit better. I didn't want to chance it, but that was some sketchy stuff. But that just goes to show, your knowledge of the lake was just uncanny, dude, unreal. And we ended up catching a lot of fish that day. And you probably put a triple spot on what I caught. You were catching them from behind me, you were catching them from in front of me, and all around me. And really put a hurting on my ego, but I was just paying attention to whatever you done, dude. And it was the most fun day, one of the most fun days I've had on the water with somebody besides myself, man. But what do you remember about that story? Do you remember much about that story, or do you remember anything about that day, Alan?
Yeah, I remember remember some of it there. I know we went over behind my house here, back into the woods there, and where all most of the stumps was at, that was over in Spring Creek.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stumpy there. You got to watch what you're doing, or you'll tear your boat up.
Yeah.
But I know we got cured in back in the Raised Lake. I cured you into Grassy Flats. Then I cured you up the creek up there. On the right, I had a good spot up there.
Yeah.
And then I cured you to a bedding area down there, what we call the Fort Scott Island.
Right.
That's right down below my house there. And in that flat in there where all them lily pads were, we went in there. And then I believe I cured you back above my house here to Brockett Slough.
Yeah.
Back in there, and y'all fishing there. And I know I cured you to Butler Creek because you had to come right by it coming down the river. And I think I told you need to fish this place first right in here.
Yeah.
That was in Butler Creek because you had to run right by it. So.
Yeah.
But that day there, I had a good day as y'all did. I really, you'd be surprised. I learned from y'all too, from you.
Yeah.
Because like I've always been told, like Uncle Jack told me, he said, Alan, you can always learn from other people, no matter how old you get. You're gonna learn from them now. He said, just pay attention. He said, you can learn from other people because you can learn on your own.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. And man, that was one of the coolest days I've had. Fishing with somebody else, and I tell you what, man. The last thing you told me before we parted ways, when I dropped you back off at your dock, you said, "Now I could show you how to catch them here, but I can't put them in the boat for you." So you said, "Good luck, man. Hope you do well." And we ended up, I can't remember exactly what we had, but I think we had a limit both days, but a limit of small fish, but nothing near like we caught the day before when I was out with you. So it was just a fun day, man, a fun day of fishing, and it was a total blast. And one of the best things about fishing and what we do, and now me being a guide, myself for over 25 going on over 25 years now as a fishing guide myself. That's one of the coolest things about what we do, and I think you'll relate to this, Alan, because you've been a guide so much longer than I have. But one of the funnest parts of our job is being in the industry doing what we do, is the relationships, the friends we meet along the way that we would have never knew if we weren't doing what we do. So that's one of the coolest things about doing what we do, is just the relationships and the friendships you create and you make along the path.
Right, you're gonna have a lot of friends you didn't realize you had, and
Yeah.
you're out there fishing, and you always want to treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah. Exactly, man.
Always, a guide he's a teacher on the water. He teaches people. I know I talk to the guys around here. They'll go out there fishing, or they'll pick up the rod and start catching fish. And I always tell them, no. I said, the people are not paying you to fish, son. They're paying you to teach them how to fish.
Yeah.
I said, you don't pick that rod up. The only time I pick a rod if I'm fishing somebody, if they're not catching fish, then I want to know why.
Yeah.
So I'll have to check it out. But
yeah.
But that's me. Guiding is the best experience you can ever get. I mean, I've guided people all over the world. I've guided for Japan, over from Italy and Spain. And I've had some great friends. I still got a lot of friends from over there that call me.
Yeah.
Check on me here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Want to go into bed fishing? Now you're one of the best bed fishermen that I personally know, and you have a special technique that you use for catching fish off the beds. As a matter of fact, um, your your biggest bass you ever caught came off a bed on Lake Juniper in Florida, which weighed 17.25 pounds. Dude, what a fish. But talk to us, man, a little bit about bed fishing, and possibly we might be able to get you or pull your arm a little bit, twist your arm to tell us a little bit of your bed fishing secrets. So, somebody out there might want to kind of hone their skills in on sight fishing, might be able to try something.
Right. Well, there's two things now. When you bed fish and sight fish are two different things.
Right.
Bed fishing is when the fish is on the lock from the bed and you catch him off the bed and make him bite.
Right.
Sight fishing when you see them schooling or just cruising out there, and then you catch them.
Yeah.
A lot of people they misinterpret that, but the way when I'm bed fishing or hunting for fish for a term or a bed, I take my trolling motor and I'll just keep it going wide open. And all I want to do is just see the fish and see which way he leaves that bed.
Right.
If he leaves the bed straight ahead, you don't want to get to that end of the bed because that's his escape route. And you don't want to get in deep water because he'll go to that. But you can always if you can get between him and the bank, the fish, you can catch him every time.
Right.
I ain't never had no problem doing that. But you always make sure that when you find the fish there, I'll go along there and mark fish in my mind. I'll go back and check them out. Because I don't like people when I'm fishing a tournament. I don't want nobody to see me stop and start trying to fish for a fish. You always want to just know where they're at and keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
If you can set up, I always set up on like I say, between the hill and the bed if I can.
Right.
And the only bait I use a creek worm. It's a watermelon seed. That's the only bait I use.
Right.
And I can make him bite about every time. But what you want to do, you want to take that bait and throw it past the bed. And then bring it right to the edge of the bed and watch that fish. He'll tell you where his sweet spot is.
Right.
When he comes on that bed, he'll look at a certain spot. It may be just the size of a dime, a penny, or anything, but he'll stop. He'll make a circle. He'll come back and he'll stop and look at that spot. And once you hit that spot, he's going to catch it. He's going to bite it.
Yeah.
But you taking what I do, I throw it past the bed, I bring it to the edge of the bed, and I watch that fish. And if I'm moving, and he kind of stops and looks at it real fast, I know that fish will bite. So then I just ease it in the bed and watch him. When he gets just right, if he comes over to it, I'll just pop that thing right in his face. And when he shoots up, 9 times out of 10 he's gonna go boom, grab it, and that's it. And
Yeah.
he caught.
Now, when a fish on a bed eats the bait, of course, it's a little bit different setting the hook on a bedding fish versus just randomly fishing a fish that you don't see and feel the bite. You don't want to stick a fish and miss her. So setting the hook on a bed fish is very crucially your timing. What do you recommend for somebody that's just wanting to learn how to bed fish as far as the timing on when to set the hook when she eats the bait? Because you're watching this whole thing go down instead of just feeling the bite, and wait until she hasn't pulling back.
What I say, when you see red, he's dead. When you see them gills flare,
Yeah.
you might as well jerk him because he's got it.
Okay. Right.
But another thing, when you catch him on the bed, when you throw it out there past him, what I try to do, I want to get as far away from that fish as I can get.
Right.
As long as I know where that bed is, I want to get way away from him because sometimes they'll spook. But if I know exactly where the bed is, I'll get as far as I can. I'll throw past the bed, and then I'll bring it up there and just feel it. You can feel it when you get over in the bed there because it'll kind of drop off. And when he hits it now, sometimes it's just a tick.
Right.
Sometimes your line will move, just start swimming off.
Yeah.
But always hold your rod tip low as you can and jerk him. Don't jerk him straight up. Just jerk him sideways and hold your rod tip low.
Right.
That way you'll catch him about every time.
Right.
A lot of times you try to jerk it up, you're gonna jerk it right out of his mouth.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool, man. All right, let's go ahead and fast forward to 2010. You decided to jump on the back of a boat and fish as a co-angler in FLW Toyota Series event on Lake Seminole. Now, a little bit of a side note to that tournament is you ended up winning the tournament on the co-angler side, but the way you won it 3 days in a row is just kind of unheard of, to be honest with you. All 3 days you fished the same bait, the same rig, the same technique, which was a wacky rig with a trick worm and a watermelon red color. Talking about watermelon, your favorite bed fishing bait, watermelon red, wacky style. But what makes this kind of a unreal unique win as a co-angler, dude, is very seldom you'll see on the co-angler side in a 3-day event that someone could come fish with 3 different anglers or 3 different boaters with one bait, one technique without putting it down and win a tournament. Usually they have to switch up 3 different days depending on, because every day you're with a different boater that's going to do different things, going to take you different places, probably fish different than the guy you had the day before. So really uncommon and unheard of for a co-angler to be able to win an event like that. Man, talk to us, dude, about that event and what went in for you to actually pull that event off with a wacky rig of all things.
Yeah, what I do when I'm wacky rig, a lot of people don't know about it, but I use a circle hook. And you don't jerk him, all you do is just wind it. When he hits it, you got him.
Right.
But the first day after that tournament there, we had an overcast day, I remember that, and the wind was blowing probably 10 miles an hour. And the guy I drew, believe it or not, he was a guide on this lake out here. And I drew him, and he asked me, Adam, what can I use to fish with? I told him I said, get you a spinning reel. I said, I got the hooks and I got the bait. And I carried him out on the lake there. And the first day I showed him, I said, over there by that grass, Paul, I said, there's a big bass right there. He threw it over there by that grass. And I told him, I said, don't jerk him now. I said, he hit it. I said, I just saw your line move. Well, he jerked and missed him. So he threw it back in there again. And he caught him that time. And when he got out of the boat, he tried to pick him up that circle. And I said, don't do that, Paul. And by the time he got off.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, Paul, I said, throw back in there again. They do nothing there. So that day he ended up, I think he had 19 or 20 pounds of fish.
Yeah.
And the next day I drew another guy, and we went down into Spring Creek and went back and we was fishing in pretty deep water. I think about 6-7 foot of water. But I knew where he went to. There's some grass there, and behind it was a sandbar. And I caught 5 fish off that sandbar where he caught a fish.
Yeah.
Him in the boat, and then the 4th day we had about a 30 or 40 mile an hour wind, and I'm throwing a a wacky worm, no lead or nothing. I didn't use lead on it. And I throw, what I'd do, I'd throw just as far with the wind as I could, and just take my slack out. By the time he got to it, I'd have a fish on there.
Yeah.
So I taught them. I fished in a hard rain that one day, fished in a bluebird day, sunshiny day, and I fished in about 15 to 20 mile an hour wind.
Yeah.
And I never just changed the bait. In fact, all my pros, I did whip them pretty bad. One of them's still mad at me today.
That's awesome, man. Boy, you know, what a 3 days too. I mean, and like you said, you pretty much, you know, put it to even the boaters on the front of the boat from behind the boat fishing that wacky rig. That was incredible.
Yeah, and I was 70-something years old when I wanted to.
Wow.
If they want to find out how I did that term and everything, if they look on Alan Carter on the internet,
right,
professional fisherman, they did a big article about me on that. So
yeah, exactly. And also, just like I think I mentioned at the beginning of the show, if you Google Alan Carter, professional bass fisherman and guide on Lake Seminole, it pulls up your MLF, which FLW, but MLF, and under the MLF, it also has that article on that tournament win. So, you know, if you're interested in reading about that win that Alan had on Lake Seminole, make sure to look that up. It's a pretty cool story that FLW done. We're gonna move forward a little bit now. Years later, I was back on Lake Seminole. Of course, I've fished Lake Seminole, you know, 5 or 6 times since that first meeting when I first met you. But I came back with the high school was having their Bassmaster High School National Championship Tournament on Lake Seminole. And our first day of practice with the 2 high school teams that I was actually boat captaining for, I wanted them to meet you. I thought, you know, having 2 young boys meeting you would do a whirlwind of good for them, just to be able to sit down and listen to you talk. So we actually pulled up to your house, and I told these boys before who you were, and we're going to pull up, and I want to introduce you to them. And so the first day we pulled up, I think it was your wife was there, and you weren't there. I think you were fishing. You were away fishing a tournament, but your wife said that you'll be home either that evening or in the morning. So we ended up coming back their last day of practice, which is 2 days later, and they had a chance to meet you. And this is probably something you don't realize, but when you know, we got back in the boat after letting them boys talk to you for the better part of an hour and a half, you know, just you giving them, you know, wisdom, you know, and some life stories, life lessons that they could use, you know, as they grew. Both of them says, man, to me, thank you for taking me and letting us talk to him. You know, that was the greatest hour and a half talk that they told me that they've ever had with anybody in this industry, just being able to listen, and you were so humble and so nice and so good to them. So that's a little bit of a fun fact on something that you probably didn't know, what these 2 boys told me about you. But you ended up giving them, or giving us, or giving them to use a whole pack of baits, and you said use these baits, don't put them down. And a couple times during the day on day 1 of their tournament, I had to kind of tell them, man, don't get discouraged, go back to that bait Alan gave you, and they put it back on and continue. And you know how young anglers are, they you know, if things get slow, you know, for a half an hour, they immediately want to start switching, even though they were catching fish on them. So I kind of had to put the whip down a little bit and say, don't switch, put that bait back on and keep at it. But you gave them a whole pack of baits, and I believe it was a trick. I don't think it was, I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it might have been like a trick worm, but it was a different bait. It wasn't made by Zoom. It was a different type of trick worm, and you gave them 150 of them. to
Yeah,
use.
the one I gave him there is one that I made.
That's right. Yes, yes, yes. It was one that you made, and you said you were catching fish on them, and don't put it down. So that's kind of what we proceeded to do. But the other thing to this story is you put them on the winning fish, and you didn't have a chance to go out with us, but you did put them on. You told us right where to go, and I don't know if you remember where this was, Alan, but it was kind of in your backyard. We fished between, I think there's a couple docks on the backside of the outside edge weed line. There's some openings around your dock, and there's another dock, I think the next dock down or something like that. And you
Right.
said just stay in these openings. There was a lot of submerged hydrilla, submerged milfoil, grass, submerged vegetation in these openings, and you said just pitch and toss the baits to the openings in the submerged vegetation. And he said you said just wait, feel, you'll see your line start moving off and pull back. And that's kind of what we done for 2 days, right? Kind of right in your backyard. Uh, they it was over 150 boats in this high school national tournament, national championship. They ended up coming in fourth place out of over 150 boats on doing exactly what you told them to do. And a side note to that too is they probably would have won this national championship tournament, but they had the only two fish that they ended up losing on both days was probably two of their biggest fish that they had both days that probably would have put them close to winning the tournament. So you were right when you said you have the winning fish for them. Just stick to it and don't change up, and that's what they done. And they had a good opportunity to win that tournament.
Yeah, I felt real comfortable that they would win it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know I sit on my boat dock out there, my binoculars, and watched y'all up there fishing.
Yeah.
Just above my house, I believe it was.
Yeah. But they had a great time, man, and I tell you what, them two boys meeting you, it's something they won't forget. They'll remember that the rest of their lives because you made such a good impression on them just being able to talk to them. And so that was cool for me to sit back and just listen to you and these boys talk and communicate, and I just sat back and let you guys have a good old rap session, and that was pretty cool, from my point of view, to be able to watch that.
Yeah, I enjoyed with them there too. I like to work with kids.
Yeah.
But if I'm out here on this lake anytime fishing, they see an old man on a pontoon boat, just tell them to come over and anybody wants to, and I'll help them talk to them anytime I'm out there.
That's awesome, man. Alan, it's been a pleasure. It's been more than a pleasure. And doing this on the mic on my podcast here, this has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to get you on for a while now, and it's been a long time, but finally it was able to make it happen, man. But it's been a pleasure, and it's always a pleasure being able to talk to you. And before we wrap this thing up, man, your social media, you are on Facebook. If anybody's wanting to follow you, follow Alan Carter, all you have to do is go on Facebook and search Alan Carter. It'll come up. And make sure to follow Alan because he has a lot. He basically puts a lot of fun stories on there, and it kind of shows what you're doing. The fishing you're still doing today. And man, you're going almost like the Energizer Bunny. I'm 55, dude, and I sit back and struggle getting out of bed in the morning now versus 20 years ago. And when, I talk to guys like you, so it's always a pleasure when we get a chance to talk to you, Alan.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I like the other day I went out here deer hunting. I was about a half mile back in the woods, and I killed a little deer. And I had to drag him out by myself.
Oh.
That was a long trip, I tell you. When I got to the boat, I just had to fall out and just sit there.
Oh man! Little side note. I just seen a Facebook post on your Facebook. I think a day or two ago, a couple days ago, you were slurping down some bait. Oh man, oysters! Now oysters to me is bait. I never ate an oyster. A lot of people love oysters. My dad, back in the day when my dad was alive, he used to sit at the or stand over the kitchen sink. They used to go clamming. And Sebastian, my mom, my dad, and me as a little kid go clamming. And they'd get home, and Dad would stand in front of the kitchen sink and shuck the clams or oysters or whatever you want to call them, and just slurp them right down at the sink. And me as like a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old little boy, it used to make me sick to my stomach. But looking at that Facebook post, it gave me some memories of my dad back in the day doing that. But I thought it was pretty funny. I had to bring that up before we ended this podcast with you slurping down oysters on Facebook.
Yeah, I made a while ago. I went out and stuffed some oysters, and I made my wife down my oyster stew.
Where did you get the oysters at?
I got them. I had to go. Well, they come from East Point, over around Apalachicola.
Right.
They call it East Point. The bay out there is where we got them from.
That's awesome, man.
Most of them people over there is kin to me. Them oyster houses. Yeah. Well, they don't have oyster houses no more. They grow them. The commercial fish for them. You put baskets out some way on a big rack, and they grow. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
But that's where we got them from.
That's awesome. Well, and we're gonna call it at that, man. It's been a pleasure and honor to have you on the mic, and we'll have to do this again. We'll have to get you back on and on another episode, man. But it's always fun, Alan. Thank you so much for taking the time.
I sure appreciate it too. Meeting you again there. We won't let it be so long the next time.
Exactly, Alan. Thanks a lot, brother.
Okay. Y'all have a good day.
All right.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of On the Mic with Alan Carter. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Norman Lee Fishing. This has been an NLF production.